Welcome to the Baltimore Flockcast, the number one Baltimore Ravens podcast in the world. Maybe we'll get an intro song sooner or later. We're working on it. Maybe I'm not, I'll be honest. Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. So today's topics on the docket, we got over-unders for the season, we got camp battles, and some shockers. I guess we'll coin the term Storf shockers here. Let's get right into it. So for over-unders, this is kind of fun if you just look at the team as a whole, go off our star players, and we'll talk about what we're going to do this season, or at least hopefully. So the Ravens win total is at 11.5. I feel like this is kind of a dumb one to start with, but at the same time, it's nice just to get it out of the way because what kind of fan's going to say under for a win total? You know, let's not waste our time here. I'm sure most Ravens fans are going to say over 11.5 wins, especially if we're going to have the number one seed, win the AFC, and go to the Super Bowl. But, I mean, the only way we don't win 11.5 games, knock on wood, hopefully this clip doesn't kill me, but is, Lamar Jackson getting hurt. But we're not going to talk about potential injuries because that is not fun, and it's awful. Let's get into the fun stuff. So we are minus 140 to win the division. And for non-betting people, I guess we'll fill you in here. I'm not going to give you the whole rundown of bets, but if something is minus, means we're the favorite. If something's plus, we are the underdog. So, for example, if minus 140, we'll just do this one math thing to show you guys. It's like minus 140. If you bet 140 bucks, you would win $100 of profit. So we are minus 140 to win the division. It's not the juiciest number, but at the same time, you look at something like that, and it's a pretty decent bet. You're betting on the team to stay relatively healthy. You're also betting on Joe Burrow to have another year where him and the Bengals haven't figured things out. I mean, or at least to a point where they're better than the Ravens. I'm not saying Joe and the Bengals won't figure it out this year. I'm a little worried. But I'm not expecting them to be better than the Ravens. And you're also, of course, betting on Cleveland and Pittsburgh to not win the division, which I don't think anyone's really too worried about that. But yeah, minus 140. I'm not giving out gambling advice, by the way, but I'm just giving out some suggestions, I guess. It's predictions, Yeah, if I had money to really throw down on this, minus 140 is a pretty good number. I would keep that in mind for most of you guys. All right, this is a fun one. A little scary, though. So we're plus 360 to be the number one seed in the AFC. I think Buffalo might have had better odds just slightly, or we are tied. Either way, I don't think I would bet on that personally. But that's a fun bet, for another home divisional playoff game to be back in Baltimore. Hopefully, it'll go better this time. Actually, last year in the division was fine, but I was thinking about the Chiefs game, sorry. But yeah, so plus 360, yeah, it's not the juiciest odds, but if you got some money to throw around and you're a Ravens fan and you believe in your team, why not? I personally think it's kind of hard, man, because I could see the Bills being the number one seed this year. There's also no stopping any team from just having a run like we saw last year with the Commanders. Football is a very interesting sport, kind of like baseball, where a random team can just pick up steam and be good for just a short stint of time, really just a season, honestly. But yeah, plus 360 to win to be the number one seed, rather. I don't think it's the best bet, but a decent one. This is wild. Minus 480 to make the playoffs. Just like we talked about earlier, I don't want to say the I word again because I feel like if we keep saying Lamar and then that word that starts with I over and over again, we're going to put a voodoo hex on him or something. But basically, you're betting on him to stay healthy. Because there's no way if Lamar Jackson plays, hell, even 12 games, that we don't make the playoffs. I guess the only other way is half the team dies in a plane accident. I don't want to put the bad vibes out there, but I'm pretty sure we're going to make the playoffs. And if you're a millionaire, minus 480, might as well. So you have to bet $480 to win 100. But hey, if you got the money, do it. That's a gimme right there. So another fun one, it's kind of the same as being the number one seed, just plus 10 for the odds there. We are plus 370 to win the AFC and be the AFC representative for the Super Bowl. It's not to win the Super Bowl, but just to go, plus 370. I feel like that's kind of a loser's bet, because who's just going to bet on their team to go to the Super Bowl? You know, and if we're also looking, we are 2 for 2 in Super Bowls. And I just can't get past that. If you bet on your team just to go to the Super Bowl and not win it, you're a coward. I'm sorry. I know this is a kids-friendly show now, but come on, man. That's a pretty fun bet. I think we could get there this year. You know, we are the favorites. Or tied. And then we're plus 700 to win the Super Bowl. I feel like I've been saying it's our year for the past few years, but Lamar's got to get his eventually. And hell, this seems like the best chance. If I had a large sum of money, I would put it on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl this year. Maybe sprinkled with some other few fun things, but you guys know what to do. All right, let's get into the player statistics. This is more of a fun one. So Lamar passing yards. So the line here set by at least FanDuel when I checked it the other day. No free shout-outs, but we already did it. Screw it. So Lamar's line for passing yards was 3,450.5 yards. So, man, let's just pull up Lamar's numbers over the past few years, because a few of you guys might hear that number and you might think that's great or that's kind of iffy, that makes you want to puke. But hold on one moment here. Let's see, Lamar Jackson. So I know at least last year that number was definitely hit. All right, here we are. Last year, 4,172 yards. Year before, 3,600. Both of those hit. Year before is when he got hurt, 2,200 yards, only played in 12 games. And then the year before that, another 12 games, didn't hit at 2,800. Then 2,700 year before, and then 3,100. So we look at these numbers, and you see something that really Lamar, when healthy, hits that. Because we're not going to count his rookie year. I guess we could count 2019. Yeah, he didn't get that. Man, maybe this number is a little bit more iffier than I envisioned it at first. Personally, I'd take it because just looking at this, he had 4,100 passing yards last year, 41 touchdowns. We're not going to talk about the touchdowns yet, but we had Derrick Henry on our team. And I guess another big caveat in this is 2019, when he started those 15 games, won MVP. Yes, he only had 3,100 passing yards, but think about all the games Lamar left early in 2019. We were beating every team, which felt like by like 60 points. You know, it was like a college football team. You know, I'm going to go with my gut here. I'm going to say Lamar is going to hit over on that 3,450 yards, but I don't feel like this is a bet you go out of your way to make. I guess I might be saying this about a lot of Lamar props, because I just don't want to have the worst happen. And if, you know, one bad play happens, your bet's screwed. I guess that's all these guys. You know, not a good way to think. Put the money on the bet. What am I talking about? Or don't. We're not advocating for gambling here. Derrick Henry. So his line was at 1,325.5. So 1,325.5 yards. Contrary to popular belief, I think this is a very iffy bet. This is going to be sweaty. I'm not saying Derrick Henry's going to have a bad year, but I would at least, one of two things I would expect is a little bit of regression, because this man is getting older. You know, he's in his 30s now. I know he's a freak, but he's still a human being. And another thing, if that doesn't happen, because he's still Derrick Henry, is that we get a lot of the other backs more involved. And we're going to talk about the position battle at backup halfback here, maybe in a few minutes. Yeah, a lot of the young guys have shown a lot of promise. I know we've seen a lot of Justice Hill over the past few years, and he's been our guy as like the number 2. But I really think we're going to see more from Rasheen Ali. We're going to see more from the man with the awful knee, Keaton Mitchell. But he's doing better now, so no disses on Keaton. But either way, 1,300 yards, it's a little iffy for me. I would not bet on this personally. But also, it's Derrick Henry, one of the greatest college football running backs of all time. Shout out to the GOAT. So Lamar's line for rushing yards is 750.5. So my immediate reaction to this when I was prepping my notes was under, right? But he's only had under 750 yards in his career once, and that was his rookie year. And I don't know if you guys remember, because it's been a little bit, but he only played in 7 games in his rookie year, and this dude still had 695 rushing yards. Who cares what I was thinking? This man is consistently performed running the ball. Yes, he has Derrick Henry, but still putting up numbers, especially even last year. Take the over, man. Continuing with rushing, Derrick Henry's rushing touchdowns. The line is at 12.5. Once again, I don't really feel good about Derrick Henry props this year. I do know one thing. Derrick Henry's going to be fed at the goal line. And if it's not him, it's going to be Lamar. And not to hop off one quickly, but Lamar's line's at 3.5. So I would either bet one or the other, because I'm not saying only one's going to get fed at the goal line, but I at least my opinion, over the past season, what we've had with Derrick Henry, of course, teams now know Derrick is going to get the ball in the red zone. I would expect to see a lot more like keepers from Lamar, a lot of like what we do best, just read options. Whether it's just an RPO, flick at the Andrews. A lot more fun packages that won't include Derrick Henry, because he'll be more of like the dummy or the, not to call Derrick dumb, but you know what I mean. The distraction, the Trojan horse. Lamar, over the past, let's just talk about his whole career. Screw it. 5 touchdowns, 7, 7, 2, 3, 5, 4 over his career with rushing touchdowns. Only once he's been under, twice, because the line's 3.5. You know, and this man missed time from injury. This man started late his rookie year. I never feel good about betting on Lamar rushing touchdowns, but I mean, I laid it out there on the table. I really think this might be the year for Lamar to be running in a little bit more with the Trojan horse, Derrick Henry, in the backfield. This is a fun one. Rashad Bateman. So his line is at 525.5. This seems incredibly low. But yes, you do have to remember we did get DeAndre Hopkins, but how much of an impact is D-Hop going to make? And another big thing I like to think about is, you know, D-Hop's not going to take his job. Nothing's going to change. We needed a guy like D-Hop to be out there. They're not doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Bateman's our downfield receiver. We got Zay in the slot. We got D-Hop just to be that big physical receiver. Get those balls as well. No homo. I don't think I can say that on this podcast. Oh, Jesus. Sorry, we're adjusting. We used to do a comedy podcast. But anyway, Bateman, 525.5. Last year, it's 756, and that was only in 14 games. If he's healthy, this dude's balling out. I don't care if DeAndre Hopkins is on the team. Let's put our money where our mouth is and ride on Bateman. Man, pause. Good Lord. But Zay, his line, 900 yards, 0.5. So 900.5 there. So last year he had 1,059. His rookie year, he had 858. Let's just simplify things and keep it easy. The trend continues. It's not that hard. I really do see Zay having a big step this year. I hate to do it to you, Zay, but you got to cut your hair, man. You know, as a fellow bald man, either let that stuff go or go to Turkey. I don't know. I feel like it'll make you faster. I'm not saying you're slow, but let the hairline, man. I'm just kind of venting because I'm going bald, but you get the gist. Yeah, Zay, I think he has a big step up. I'm seeing like at least 1,200 yards out of Zay this year. Because we had a lot of moments where Zay he looked like one of the best receivers in football and flashes. Hear me out, guys. And then there'd be other moments where you're like, wow, this guy is not really good. What's going on here? So, you know, that's how it is with young receivers. There's ups and there's downs. But this year, we'll see. It was kind of odd to me, these next two guys, there wasn't any lines available for them on the sportsbook at least that I was using. Not going to shout them out again. But yet, D-Hop and Mark Andrews, they did not have anything up there. So I guess we'll just give our own predictions. I'm not going to guess what the Vegas line would be because that's not my job. Who cares about Vegas? I think D-Hop's really going to prove them wrong, even though I said he's not going to impact Bateman at all. That was no diss against him. I think D-Hop's going to have a big year. I think, keep it in perspective here, 700 yards. But that's a very big year for an aging receiver like DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's going to be a really big help for us. He might have had 1,000 yards 2 years ago. I should have wrote it in my notes for Tennessee. This guy still has it. He just didn't really have the targets last year. So Mark Andrews, my gut, and I'm sure everyone else is saying, go low, something really small. That's why it's not even listed on FanDuel, because who knows what this guy is going to do. He's probably going to lose his job to Isaiah Likely. Who knows? Ravens might even trade him. Everyone hates him. He's Judas, as some would say. He dropped the ball. Ooh. That's last year. Hopefully he's doing what I'm doing. I'm leaving it in the past. It's not even what I think of anymore. Mark Andrews is still one of the best tight ends in football. And like athletes do, he's going to move on from this and have a great season this year. Not an amazing one. I'm not expecting like 1,000 yards, something crazy, but I'd say at least 700 yards from Mark Andrews. 700 yards, maybe 6 touchdowns, something like that. A pretty good season. Nothing crazy, but this man hasn't lost it. So don't start this conversation yet. That's why I hate Baltimore fans sometimes, if we're being honest. But with that, that's no diss on Isaiah Likely. I think he has at least 500 yards as well. It's going to be a big year for us, as you can tell with all these numbers here. Yeah, Isaiah Likely, it sounds kind of crazy, but I see him taking the next step to become a star, but that doesn't take away anything from Andrews. So it's kind of like, as Hannah Montana would say, the best of both worlds. That was awful. All right, this is one more one. This is not for the Ravens, but this is a bet that I saw. So Flacco is minus 102. That's pretty much even money to start week 1 for the Browns. I know Joe is getting old. He might have it, he might not. Just think about this. What makes more sense? Before I even say this, we were talking about what's going to make sense for a decision the Cleveland Browns are going to do, and we're going to put money on it. That doesn't sound like a good idea, but hear me out. Yeah, what makes more sense as an NFL owner, GM, coach, whatever you want to say? Are you going with the old vet during this rebuilding period? Are you going with Kenny Pickett, a guy who showed time in and time out he is not an NFL starter in any way, and he's just a bridge guy? I don't even know if you could give him that term. He's just a backup quarterback. And then you have the young guns there with Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. You're not starting them week 1. And Deshaun Watson's probably never playing football again, or at least hopefully. It's a pretty good bet. So let's get to position battles in training camp, because we talked about kickers in depth. Today we're not going to go super crazy in depth here, but still dabble. I think I mentioned it earlier. A fun and interesting battle to keep an eye on is going to be the position of running back depth. So we got Keaton Mitchell, Rasheen Ali. If you guys forget who that even is, that was our draft pick last year, running back from Marshall. He just got hurt, really never saw the field, especially with Derrick Henry being Derrick Henry. And then Justice Hill. Personally, I think, as I said earlier, Justice Hill's getting pretty old. This man's done his time, and I think he's seeing the sunset. Running backs don't last forever, and especially non-elite running backs. I think this is where Justice kind of takes a step back, and we see guys like Keaton Mitchell and Rasheen Ali step up. I'm a little worried about Keaton Mitchell coming off the injury. We didn't see a whole lot last year with him returning because, once again, Derrick Henry. But honestly, I see Rasheen kind of being the guy that takes over, which is not what a lot of fans are going to see coming. And I probably should sign him in my Dynasty League because he's still on the waivers, but who cares? I really think this year we'll see a good mix of Rasheen. We'll see a good mix of Keaton and a lot of Derrick Henry, but just enough to drop down on Derrick's numbers like we were talking about earlier. And I'm sorry, Justice. I think this is your last ride with the Ravens. I love you, though. Another position here I want to talk about is quarterback. So this one is few of you probably thinking quarterback. Hold on. No, not starting quarterback. Backup quarterback. This one's kind of interesting to some. Actually, not to many, but to me it is. I love backup quarterbacks. That's why I love preseason. Some would call it the sportstism. We'll talk about that on a different episode. But in our backup quarterback competition, the QB2 battle, we got Devin Leary in his last stand against Cooper Rush. And yes, I said it's his last stand because if this man's going to be our QB3, our P squad quarterback again, that shows that he's not it. And he's probably not going to hang around. So I would remember that when we see these guys in preseason this year. Yes, of course, every year they're playing for their jobs, but the clock is ticked for Devin Leary. If he doesn't show up and step out and show that he can at least be a backup guy, especially with the speed he kind of showed in college, I'm not calling him a speed demon, but he's faster than Cooper Rush. He showed nothing really in the preseason so far, or anything that we've had, at least that I've seen, I could say. But I'm not a big Cooper Rush guy either. You know, over the years, I feel like a lot like I am a ageist kind of when I have to pick who I like more in a position battle. It's fun to go with like the flashy younger guy, but I think Cooper Rush he might be it. He might be our backup this year, but at the same time, I don't really love either. But what are we doing talking about QB2? Because this is also another great thing to remember. If Lamar gets hurt, nothing's happening. I know the Eagles won a Super Bowl. It might almost be 10 years ago at this point. Man, we're getting old. With Nick Foles as the backup quarterback, but that doesn't happen. Maybe it could again, but if you're investing money in the backup quarterback, that shows you're not confident in the starter. And there's just been this weird thing in the NFL, I've seen at least for the past 10 years, where the starting quarterback, not saying this is Lamar, by the way, at all, but the starting quarterback will be upset if they bring in a good QB2 because they get worried. They're like, oh, now I have to fight for my job, which of course they should have to, but they've also earned their right to be there. It's whatever. I think it's kind of stupid, but it's where we are in the NFL now. I would like Devin Leary to be the quarterback too, and I don't really know who will be because obviously it's hard to evaluate two backup quarterbacks, but I'm going to go with Devin this year. Another fun one is depth receiver. So Devontae Walker, Tylan Wallace, and you'd be surprised to hear this name here, but Malik Cunningham. I think Malik can surprise people. I've been a fan of his for a few years. If you guys don't know who Malik Cunningham is, I hope you do. But he played, sorry, the vocalized pause. He played quarterback at Louisville. I can't speak, man. And then he was converted to receiver in the NFL. It was kind of funny because everyone compared him to Lamar Jackson. And I feel like a lot of that was just due to him being a black mobile quarterback that goes to the same school. But to be fair, he is fast, so sure. But this man's now a receiver, and he's pretty solid. I'm not saying he's Jamar Chase, but he's a decent depth receiver. But the other guys, we got Tylan Wallace and Devontae Walker. With any other team, I'd say these guys would be fighting to be an elite receiver too. Not elite, but you know what I'm saying. A good receiver too on a bad team. And here we are. These guys are pretty much the bottom of the barrel for us, which is amazing. Tylan Wallace has done some legendary stuff for the Ravens, especially kick returns. We'll never forget those moments. But it's kind of cool because you got a guy like Devontae. He was a rookie last year. He only caught one ball, and it happened to be a touchdown. So this man, he's hitting 1,000%. I'm not saying that's going to stay that way forever, but we need to get the kid more tries. I know he was hurt for a little bit last year, but I feel like we haven't seen enough of him. But it's the name of the game of football. I was just saying Malik's a great player. He's really grown, as a quarterback to a receiver. But name of the game, he's going to be probably buried in the depth chart, and we'll never really see him play, barring injury. Sorry for the cough. Another huge battle. We'll end on this one. You guys could have guessed it. Mark Andrews against Isaiah Likely. I think this is going to get blown out of proportion because it's not really a battle. It's going to be taking place in training camp that you would think it would be, especially because the Ravens use so many sets with two tight ends. But I still think Mark will always be our guy. I know we had that awful moment last year, but that is last year, not this season, and we take a step forward. So this is the next segment. I guess we'll coin this term. It'll be it's called Storf's Shockers. So these are guys that I think will shock some fans in the preseason, and I guess we're going to come back to these guys and check in on how they're doing throughout each preseason game. Start with the first one. My man Peebles from Virginia Tech, Aeneas Peebles, defensive lineman. This guy, I feel like everyone's just fallen in love with him since he's been drafted. First off, if you don't know him, you see the name and you're like, Peebles, Pebbles, what's going on here? And he's just such like a goofball guy. I don't know. And he seems like he really wants, I know it sounds dumb. Of course, every player hopefully wants to be there, but this is a guy where he's kind of local. I see him making somewhat of an impact this year and being a Raven for the indefinite future and being a guy that we really see in the rotation of the defensive line here. This one might be a homer decision because he may or may not have been coached by my uncle in rec football. But shout out to a local guy here from Havre de Grace, Maryland, Darian Dalcourt from Alabama. So I don't know if you guys know, but it seemed like a year or two before he graduated from Alabama, this guy was projected as like a late first, second, third round pick. Of course, projections are hard in the beginning of the season, but this guy was definitely projected to be like a first, second rounder. And then he started sliding down the board because he got hurt, and he switched positions. Either way, here is the guy now, Darian Dalcourt. He's on the Ravens. And forget about everything. Just think about this, guys. You grow up loving the game of football. And, of course, having your hometown team, as a player, you may not be as attached to them. But I'm telling you, most of these guys, when you grow up in an area like Baltimore or Maryland, you're a Ravens fan. And when you make it to that level where you're in the NFL, and then on top of that, you make it to your favorite team as a child, I feel like you'd have to work a little bit harder. I know, of course, everyone's going to work hard in the NFL, but that's got to give you a little extra grit and push. I'm not saying this guy's going to start at center or guard or wherever he could fill in, but I could see Darian becoming one of our like fill-in linemen where you could fill in at guard, center if anyone gets hurt, and this guy being a good piece to our unit, our backup lineman here. Shout out Darian, Havre de Grace. We already talked about him a lot earlier, and I'm just going to say his name in here, but Rasheen Ali, you guys know that I'm a fan. Dude killed it at Marshall. Was a big fan of his in college, and then the Ravens happened to draft him, which was sick. Especially when you I don't usually mock, I only mock the first round, but you kind of just say a few guys you want in the late rounds and you hope the Ravens get them. And it never really works out because you'll say 5, 10 guys and you just kind of pray. Rasheen Ali was one of those guys where I was saying, I really hope the Ravens draft him. And they did. So I hope he proves me right this year. Last year was a little hurt. This one feels really dumb to say. Another Marshall guy, Mike Green. Of course, we're expecting him to be great this year. So it's not even really going to be a shocker. I am so excited we got Mike Green. I think this guy, he was just born to be a Raven. And things happen where he fell in the draft. We're not going to talk about it. Everything happens for a reason, and I'm happy that he fell to the Ravens because we got one hell of a player. Mike Green is going to be a dog. Well, all right. You guys heard the little man wake up. I just woke up my infant child. So on that note, we are going to stop the podcast here. Next episode, we'll probably do a sneak peek of our division, and maybe we will do that schedule overview. So thank you guys for coming out to the Baltimore Flockcast, the #1 Ravens podcast in the world.